In the suburb of Decatur, Georgia, just a few miles from the vibrant pulse of Atlanta, Maple Grove Street is a portrait of middle-class serenity. The single-story homes, with their exposed brick facades or pastel-painted exteriors, line up in perfect symmetry, each with a meticulously trimmed lawn adorned with neatly pruned shrubs and, in some cases, small welcome signs bearing optimistic messages. In the late afternoon, the air carries the scent of freshly cut grass, mingled with the distant hum of lawnmowers and the laughter of children pedaling bicycles or playing tag on the sidewalks. Parked cars reflect the setting sun, and the occasional bark of a dog completes the soundtrack of a neighborhood where life seems to follow a predictable, comforting script. It is in this setting that Tanisha and Marcus Freeman, both in their mid-30s, built an existence that, to any neighbor or casual visitor, seemed enviably stable. Tanisha Freeman, a dark-skinned woman with piercing eyes that seemed to see beyond words, held the position of human resources manager at a tech company in the heart of Atlanta. At the office, her upright posture, firm tone, and carefully calibrated smile made her an admired leader, though she maintained an air of reserve that discouraged personal confidences. Her colleagues respected her, but few could claim to truly know her. Outside the corporate world, Tanisha channeled her energy into commitments that reinforced her image as a multifaceted woman. On Sundays, her powerful voice resonated in the choir of the local Baptist church, where she sang hymns with a devotion that moved the congregation. During the week, she attended yoga classes at the neighborhood community center, performing poses with an almost meditative focus, as if seeking balance not only in her body but in her soul. Marcus, her husband, was Tanisha's opposite in temperament but complementary in presence. Tall, athletic, with broad shoulders and a smile that disarmed any suspicion, he was the beating heart of the barbershop he had founded in the neighborhood's commercial strip. Freeman's Cuts was more than a business. It was a gathering place, a space where teenagers sought trendy haircuts, executives stopped by for a quick trim, and elderly men convened to discuss politics, sports, or changes in the neighborhood. Marcus wielded his razor with surgical precision, and his skill, combined with natural charisma, drew a loyal clientele of all ages and backgrounds. He knew the names of his customers' children, remembered birthdays, and told jokes that elicited hearty laughter, turning each haircut into an experience. To the community, Marcus was a living example of a man who had turned talent and hard work into success. Together, Tanisha and Marcus seemed to embody what many would call the Black American dream. They had achieved homeownership, a 3-bedroom 2-story house with large windows and a porch where they sometimes sipped coffee on Saturday mornings. In the garage, a gleaming SUV, purchased after years of saving, was a tangible symbol of their upward mobility. The couple invested in their future with the same determination they applied to their careers. They paid the mortgage on time, contributed generously to the church, and maintained a modest but growing savings account for their daughter's education. The Freemans' life was a testament to discipline, faith, and resilience, values they passed on to their only child, Kayla, age 12. The couple's routine was a well-oiled machine, almost like a rehearsed choreography. Tanisha woke at 5:30 a.m., before the sun rose, for a moment of silent meditation in her favorite corner of the living room, where a small scented candle cast soft shadows on the wall. Then, she prepared breakfast with precision, scrambled eggs with a pinch of pepper for herself, crispy toast with strawberry jam for Marcus. He, in turn, left at 7 a.m. after a quick kiss on Tanisha's forehead, heading to the barbershop, where he spent the day between haircuts, lively conversations, and the soft hum of an R&B playlist. Tanisha braved the 40-minute commute from Decatur to Atlanta, using the time to listen to leadership podcasts or self-help audiobooks, always seeking ways to enhance her professional performance. At night, the couple reunited for dinner, simple dishes like roasted chicken with vegetables or pasta with homemade sauce, often accompanied by a glass of wine for Tanisha and a beer for Marcus. As they ate, they watched reruns of The Cosby Show on the living room TV, laughing at the same old jokes, or discussed plans for their next vacation, dreaming of destinations like Orlando or South Carolina beaches. Weekends were reserved for family and community. The Freemans' backyard, with its shiny steel barbecue grill and garden chairs arranged in a circle, became the stage for lively cookouts. Friends and neighbors arrived with potato salad, ribs, or cornbread, and conversations flowed between work stories, harmless gossip, and debates about the latest basketball game. Laughter echoed late into the night, blending with a playlist of 90s hits. Kayla, always with a shy smile, ran around with other kids or sat with her tablet, engrossed in games or videos. To everyone, the Freeman family was a picture of harmony. Kayla, the couple's daughter, was a 12-year-old with carefully braided curly hair and eyes that inherited her mother's intensity. She attended a private school, where she excelled in math and writing, and spent her afternoons at piano lessons, practicing scales with a patience that impressed her teacher. At home, she split her time between homework and her tablet, where she played games or watched teen shows. Kayla was a happy child, but sometimes, in conversations with friends, she mentioned that Mom seemed mad, for no apparent reason, an observation that went unnoticed, as if it were just a phase. However, there were subtle, almost imperceptible details that suggested cracks in the Freemans' impeccable facade. Tanisha kept a notebook, locked in a drawer, where she recorded every household expense with near-obsessive precision. Every receipt from Marcus, from the barber shop, the grocery store, even a coffee shop, was catalogued, as if she were trying to confirm something she never voiced aloud. Marcus, meanwhile, had a habit of checking his phone frequently, sometimes receiving messages he read quickly before deleting, with a furtive glance that didn't escape a keen observer. These were subtle gestures, small deviations in routine that went unnoticed by friends, neighbors, and even Kayla. Except, perhaps, by Tanisha, whose eyes seemed to catch more than she let on. In the fall of 2024, as the leaves on the trees along Maple Grove Street began to turn shades of orange and gold, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift crept into the Freeman family's dynamic. The neighborhood, with its well-maintained single-story homes and the soft chime of wind chimes swaying on porches, continued to exude the tranquility typical of a middle-class suburb. But inside the Freeman household, something felt misaligned, like a discordant note in a familiar melody. Tanisha, always punctual and methodical, began arriving home later from work, citing extra meetings or urgent reports. At the office, however, her colleagues noticed behaviors that clashed with her usual efficiency. For long stretches, she stared at her computer screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard without typing a word. Her normally composed, professional demeanor gave way to a distant look, as if her mind were elsewhere, navigating thoughts she didn't share. A colleague, Lisa, commented during a coffee break that Tanisha seemed stuck in a loop, but no one paid much attention, attributing it to corporate stress. At the barbershop, Marcus also showed signs of change. Freeman's Cuts, with its walls adorned with basketball star posters and the constant scent of aftershave, had always been a vibrant space, filled with laughter and lively conversations mixed with the buzz of clippers. But that fall, Marcus seemed less present. He, who once entertained clients with funny stories or heated debates about the latest Hawks game, now worked in silence, offering a forced smile. He checked his phone with a frequency that annoyed even the most patient clients, responding to messages with quick gestures before pocketing the device. A regular customer, Jamal, a 40-year-old mechanic who had been getting his hair cut with Marcus for a decade, recalled a comment Marcus made in jest but with an unexpected weight. "Marriage is like cutting hair. You think you're in control, but one wrong snip and it's over." Jamal laughed at the time, but later reflected that Marcus's tone didn't seem as light as usual. At home, the meticulously crafted harmony of the Freemans began to show cracks. Dinners, once marked by relaxed conversations about the day or vacation plans, now carried a subtle tension, like the air before a storm. One evening, while serving dinner, spaghetti with meatballs, Kayla's favorite, Tanisha asked a question in a casual tone that didn't match the intensity in her eyes. "Who was that woman who texted you today? I saw the name Sasha flash on the screen." Marcus, cutting a piece of bread, froze for a fraction of a second before letting out a short laugh. "Just a client asking for an appointment, babe. You know how it is, people don't stop," he replied, but his eyes avoided hers, focusing on the plate in front of him. Kayla, seated at the table with her fork suspended in midair, glanced between them, her brown eyes catching the exchange without a word. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the wall clock, ticking with an almost oppressive rhythm. Later that night, when Marcus was already asleep, Tanisha was seen in the dim light of their bedroom, her face illuminated by the blue glow of his phone. She scrolled through the screen, searching for something, a behavior that contrasted with her usual respect for her husband's privacy. Friends and acquaintances of the couple also began to notice changes, though no one dared comment openly. At the local Baptist church, where the choir's voices echoed hymns that filled the polished wooden hall, Tanisha sang with less fervor. Her voice, once a force that seemed to lift the congregation, now sounded restrained, as if part of her were absent. Renee, a longtime friend who shared the pulpit with Tanisha, noticed she seemed distracted, like she was planning something. During a choir rehearsal, Renee tried to strike up a conversation, asking if everything was okay, but Tanisha only smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and changed the subject. Marcus, meanwhile, began frequenting the Blue Note, a small, dimly lit bar a few blocks from the barbershop. It was a place with worn wooden tables, a jukebox playing jazz and blues, and a counter where neighborhood men gathered to drink beer and forget the day. Marcus, who rarely drank beyond an occasional beer at home, now appeared at the Blue Note 2 or 3 times a week, sitting alone in a corner, fiddling with his phone or staring into his glass as if searching for answers. The neighbors, ever attuned to Maple Grove's routine, also picked up signs that something was amiss. Mr. Carter, a retiree who spent mornings watering his rosebushes and evenings on his porch with iced tea, saw Tanisha one early morning around 2 a.m. She stood on her porch in a gray robe, arms crossed, staring into the dark street. The streetlight cast long shadows across her face, and Mr. Carter, who knew her as a woman of boundless energy, described her expression as cold like ice. He considered calling out to her, but something in her stance stopped him, as if she were in a private world, unreachable. These signs, though discreet, created a sense of unease that hung like a fog over the family. Tanisha began asking Kayla indirect questions, as if casually, about conversations she had with her father. "Did your dad tell you anything funny today?" Or, "He's been going out a lot with friends, huh?" Were questions posed with a smile but made Kayla frown, confused. Marcus, meanwhile, started locking his phone with a password, something he'd never done before, and kept it within reach, even during dinners. Small gestures, the way Tanisha pursed her lips at certain responses or how Marcus changed the subject with suspicious speed, began to erode the normalcy Maple Grove knew. The Freeman's life, once a model of stability, seemed like a carefully staged photograph that, under close inspection, revealed subtle tears, as if someone were slowly ripping it apart. Convinced something was deeply wrong, Tanisha embarked on a silent, relentless quest for answers. Her background in human resources, with years handling corporate conflicts and analyzing behaviors, had sharpened her ability to observe details, interpret silences, and connect seemingly unrelated dots. She approached the situation with the same meticulousness she applied to financial reports or candidate interviews, but now with a personal weight that woke her in the middle of the night, heart racing. The house on Maple Grove Street, with its polished wooden furniture and the lavender scent of diffusers Tanisha scattered around the living room, became the headquarters of her investigation, a space where every drawer and corner potentially held a clue. Tanisha began by reviewing bank statements, a task already part of her obsessive financial control routine. Seated at the kitchen table under the light of a desk lamp, she examined each line with a red pen, marking cash withdrawals Marcus didn't mention. They were small amounts, between $50 and $100, taken from ATMs at odd hours, like 10 p.m. on weekdays, when he was supposedly at the barber shop or the Blue Note. When questioned, Marcus gave vague answers. "Bought some stuff for the shop." Or, "Paid for snacks for the guys." But his eyes darted to the side, a tick Tanisha, with her keen attention, noted as a sign of evasion. Determined to go beyond assumptions, Tanisha took a bolder step. Seizing a moment when Marcus left his phone charging in the living room, she installed a tracking app, disguised as a routine software update. The process was quick, guided by a tutorial she found on an online forum, and Marcus didn't notice the change. The app revealed something that left her with a knot in her stomach. Marcus was spending time at an apartment in East Atlanta, a bohemian neighborhood miles from the barbershop and his usual route. The visits happened at night, 2 or 3 times a week, lasting 1 to 2 hours. Tanisha stared at the digital map on her phone, the red dot blinking like an accusation, feeling a mix of anger and curiosity that drove her to press on. To supplement the data, Tanisha began talking to people close to Marcus, keeping a casual tone to avoid raising suspicion. During a visit to the barbershop, under the pretext of bringing Marcus a coffee, she approached Denise, the 25-year-old receptionist who worked at the counter of Freeman's Cuts. Denise, with her hoop earrings and a nervous smile, hesitated before speaking but eventually revealed the first concrete clue: a woman named Sasha, described as young, with braided hair and colorful arm tattoos, frequented the barbershop. Officially, Sasha came to talk to Marcus or ask for haircut advice, but Denise admitted, in a hushed voice, that the two seemed very close. She mentioned muffled laughter and exchanged glances that didn't go unnoticed. Tanisha listened in silence, her face impassive, but her hands trembled as she jotted down the name, Sasha, in her black-covered notebook, where she already recorded dates, times, and observations. The obstacles, however, were many. Marcus was careful, almost paranoid in his discretion. He deleted messages regularly, kept his phone close, and answered any question with rehearsed ease. One evening, during dinner, Tanisha tried to broach the subject indirectly, mentioning his frequent outings to the Blue Note. "You're spending a lot of time at that bar, huh? What's going on?" she asked, in a tone that tried to sound light. Marcus tilted his head, flashing the charming smile that always got him out of tight spots. "What are you worried about, babe?" "Just relaxing, it's been a tough day," he replied, reaching to touch her hand. The response infuriated Tanisha, but she swallowed her anger, offering a forced smile as she poured more juice for Kayla, who watched the scene in silence. Instead of confronting him directly, Tanisha intensified her investigation. On a Thursday night, after confirming via the app that Marcus was in East Atlanta, she took the SUV and drove to the address. The neighborhood, with its narrow streets, graffiti-covered walls, and neon-lit bars, contrasted with Decatur's tranquility. Parked a few yards from the building, a 3-story apartment complex with metal balconies, Tanisha saw Marcus exit his car. He walked to the entrance, where a woman, Sasha, she presumed, greeted him with a lingering hug. The woman had braided hair, as Denise described, and wore a leather jacket. The scene, lit by a dim streetlight, made Tanisha feel a tightness in her chest, as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. But it also brought a cold clarity. She needed concrete proof, something Marcus couldn't deny with his charm. Secondary characters began to orbit the investigation, each playing a role in the web Tanisha wove. Renee, her church choir friend, noticed the exhaustion in her eyes during a rehearsal and tried to dissuade her. Sitting on the wooden pews of the sanctuary, with the scent of incense still lingering, Renee held Tanisha's hand and said softly, "Men do foolish things, Tanisha, but it's not worth destroying your family over. Pray, leave it in God's hands." Tanisha thanked her, but her lips formed a hard line. She wasn't ready to forgive or ignore. On the other hand, Malik, a co-worker skilled in IT, offered practical help. During a conversation in the company cafeteria, he taught Tanisha how to use software to recover deleted messages from chat apps, explaining the steps patiently. "Just be careful, this could hurt you more than it helps," he warned, but Tanisha only nodded, already planning her next move. Each discovery fueled Tanisha's tension but also her determination. A recovered photo from Marcus's phone, showing him and Sasha at a bar, smiling with drinks in hand, made her stomach churn. An ambiguous message? "Can't wait to see you again," sent by Sasha and deleted minutes later, was another nail in the coffin of the trust Tanisha once had in her husband. She no longer slept. She spent nights awake, reviewing notes, checking the tracking app, or staring at the bedroom ceiling while Marcus snored beside her. Her eyes were sunken, with dark circles no makeup could hide, but her mind remained sharp, driven by an almost visceral need to uncover the truth. On the night of November 15, 2024, under Decatur's cloudy sky, Tanisha found the definitive proof she had been seeking for weeks. Alone in the living room, with only the bluish glow of her laptop screen illuminating her face, she used the software Malik recommended to recover deleted messages from Marcus's phone. What she found was devastating: a series of conversations between Marcus and Sasha, filled with intimacy, including explicit photos that made Tanisha look away for a moment, her stomach roiling. The messages detailed plans for a weekend together at a hotel in Savannah, with Marcus promising Sasha he would sort things out with Tanisha soon. Each word was a blow, a betrayal that went beyond a moment of weakness. Sitting on the couch, with the house's silence broken only by the ticking of the wall clock, Tanisha read and reread the messages, tears streaming silently down her face, leaving warm tracks on her skin. Her hands trembled, but her eyes remained fixed on the screen, absorbing every detail with a mix of pain and clarity. The discovery transformed Tanisha. She was no longer just a suspicious wife, driven by intuition and fragmented clues. She was a betrayed woman, with anger pulsing through her veins like an uncontrollable river. The house, once a haven of routine and stability, now felt like a stage of lies, every corner tainted by Marcus's betrayal. The next morning, as the rising sun cast long shadows across the kitchen, Tanisha confronted Marcus. He was standing, brewing coffee, oblivious to the storm approaching. Without preamble, Tanisha held up the phone with the recovered messages on the screen, her face rigid with fury. "Look at this, Marcus," she said, her voice low but sharp as a blade. Marcus, caught off guard, tried to deny it, stammering disjointed explanations, but the evidence was undeniable. Tanisha's rage erupted. "You think I'm an idiot?" she shouted, her voice echoing through the silent house. In a surge of impulse, she threw the phone against the wall, the sound of the impact reverberating like thunder. Marcus, cornered, shoulders slumped and face pale, finally admitted the affair but tried to downplay its significance. "It was just a fling, Tanisha. It doesn't mean anything, I swear." To Tanisha, those words were like gasoline on a fire. Each syllable rekindled her pain, transforming her hurt into fierce determination. There was no room left for doubt or reconciliation. What existed between them was irrevocably broken. On the night of November 16, 2024, the Freeman household, once a refuge of lively barbecues and quiet evenings, became the stage for a tragedy that would shake the peaceful Maple Grove community. The living room, with its beige sofas, framed family photos, and a carefully chosen rug by Tanisha, seemed incongruous with the darkness brewing. Tanisha, driven by an explosive mix of rage and despair, planned each step with a precision that mirrored her methodical mind. That morning, she drove to a pharmacy in downtown Decatur, where she purchased a bottle of liquid tranquilizer, selecting it with the same care she gave to her grocery lists. That evening, she offered Marcus a glass of his favorite whiskey, with a smile that masked the storm within. "Let's talk calmly, Marcus," she said, her voice soft, almost conciliatory. He, exhausted from the heated argument the previous morning and eager to appease her, accepted the drink without suspicion, taking long sips as he leaned back on the couch. Minutes later, the tranquilizer took effect. Marcus, with heavy eyes, mumbled something incoherent before slipping into a deep sleep, the glass slipping from his hand and falling onto the rug. Tanisha watched in silence, her heart pounding but her hands steady. She stood, walked to the kitchen, and retrieved a knife, the same one she used to slice ribs at weekend barbecues, with a long, sharp blade that gleamed under the fluorescent light. With terrifying, almost mechanical precision, she committed the act that would shock Decatur, each movement driven by a determination that contrasted with the pain still burning in her chest. The scene that followed was chaotic, marked by an oppressive silence broken only by the distant sound of a car passing on the street. Tanisha didn't flee. Instead, she returned to the living room, sat on the couch beside Marcus's body, the knife still in her hand, its handle cold against her palm. Her eyes, now vacant, stared at the wall, as if she were in a trance, awaiting the inevitable. Hours later, as the sky began to lighten, Kayla woke. Drawn by a premonition, the girl descended the stairs and found her father. Her scream, shrill and filled with terror, pierced the early morning quiet, echoing through the neighborhood and rousing Maple Grove's residents. The sound reached Mr. Carter, who, from his porch holding a coffee mug, recognized the anguish in the girl's voice. Without hesitation, he ran to the phone and called the authorities, his heart heavy with what might have happened. The police's arrival revealed the extent of the horror, but the investigation brought a twist that reshaped perceptions of the case. Tanisha hadn't acted on impulse, as one might initially assume. Forensic analysis and evidence collected at the house painted a picture of premeditation. The bottle of tranquilizer, still with the pharmacy receipt, was found in the kitchen trash. Tanisha's notebook, kept in a locked drawer, contained detailed notes, not just of expenses but of Marcus's schedules, movements, and even cryptic phrases like, "He can't get away with this." On the family computer, the browsing history showed recent searches for crimes of passion, effects of tranquilizers, and penalties for murder in Georgia. What appeared at first glance to be an act of fury triggered by betrayal was, in fact, a cold, calculated plan, executed with the same precision Tanisha applied to her professional life. The crime committed at the Freeman household on the night of November 16, 2024, sent shockwaves through the tranquil Maple Grove Street, shaking the Decatur community. The neighborhood, known for its well-kept lawns and the sound of children playing, plunged into stunned silence, broken only by whispers of disbelief among neighbors. Friends, members of the local Baptist church, and even casual acquaintances of the couple were torn between shock at the violence and hesitant compassion for Tanisha, whose pain, for some, seemed to partially justify the extreme act. The morning after the crime, police arrived at the house with sirens off, but the flashing lights of the patrol cars drew curious glances from neighboring windows. Tanisha, still seated in the living room with the knife in hand, offered no resistance. Handcuffed, she was led away under the gazes of residents like Mr. Carter, who, from his porch, shook his head in silence, unable to reconcile the determined woman he knew with the figure now escorted to the police car. During the interrogation, conducted in a gray, cold room at the Decatur police station, Tanisha maintained a rigid posture, her face marked by deep dark circles. She spoke little, answering questions with short sentences and a voice devoid of emotion. When pressed about her motives, she looked directly at the detective and said, "He destroyed my life. I just did justice." The words, laced with icy conviction, echoed in the police report, which described Tanisha as lucid but emotionally distant. Marcus, miraculously, survived the attack, but the aftermath was devastating. Admitted to an ICU in Atlanta, he faced severe injuries that compromised his mobility and psychological trauma that left him alternating between silence and panic attacks. Kayla, the 12-year-old daughter, was found by police in a state of shock, unable to speak after witnessing the scene. After a medical evaluation, she was briefly hospitalized and then placed in the temporary custody of her maternal grandmother, a 60-year-old woman living in a nearby town, now tasked with comforting her granddaughter amid the collapse of her family. The local media quickly turned the case into a sensational headline. Atlanta newspapers and TV stations ran titles like, "Betrayed Wife Commits Brutal Crime," and "Tragedy in Decatur, Love and Revenge." Reporters parked vans on Maple Grove Street, interviewing neighbors and trying to capture images of the Freeman house, now sealed with police tape. Marcus's barbershop, Freeman's Cuts, which for years had been a vibrant community hub, closed its doors. The "Open" sign was replaced with a permanently closed notice, and shocked clients began frequenting other salons, carrying with them stories and speculations about what drove Marcus to cheat. The Freeman house, with its porch once decorated for barbecues, was hastily put up for sale, the real estate sign seeming like a final sentence for the life the family had built. The investigation uncovered additional details that fueled both the media and neighborhood conversations. Sasha, the woman identified as Marcus's lover, was located by police in a statement that revealed more layers to the story. Young, With braided hair and eye-catching tattoos, Sasha admitted knowing Marcus was married but claimed he convinced her his marriage was practically over. According to her, Marcus promised to leave Tanisha soon, a promise that led her to believe in a future together. Shaken by the crime and public exposure, Sasha left Decatur days after the incident, moving to another city without a trace, according to neighbors of the East Atlanta apartment where she met Marcus. Tanisha was sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder and aggravated assault. During the trial, her lawyer argued she suffered from post-traumatic stress due to the betrayal, but the judge considered the premeditation an aggravating factor. In prison, Tanisha became an introspective figure, participating in support groups and writing letters to Kayla, who never responded. Marcus moved to another city, living with his mother and battling severe depression. Kayla, at 14, began intensive therapy but carried the trauma of witnessing her family's collapse. The Decatur community tried to move on, but the case became a local legend, used as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unexpressed anger. The Freeman case raises questions about trust, betrayal, and the limits of human pain. Did Tanisha act out of revenge or a desire to reclaim control? Did Marcus deserve punishment, but at what cost? The tragedy, ultimately, brought no justice, only scars. As Renee, Tanisha's friend, said in an interview years later, "Love can build a house, but anger can burn it down in seconds."